Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Across the South. It's been a news-filled week from last weekend's rivalries to all of the new coaching hires and now moving more into basketball and the college postseason. But we'll get all to that here in just a little bit. In the meantime, not even Merry Christmas, but Happy December, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you want to call it. The room, you can't see it, but I can, is decorated all over the place, from a Christmas tree in the corner to the little one behind me. And then, of course, we have the new addition, the Across the South sign. But let's get into all of the news that happened this last week and all of it that's moving forward for future programs and years that are yet to come. So starting right out of the gate, we're looking at last week's rivalry games. It was the last game of the regular season for college football. Some teams continue on playing in bowl games as well as the college football playoffs. Others have, their season has come to the end and it's on to basketball. But we're going to go through all of these games from last week, starting off with the Egg Bowl. Number 7 Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Ole Miss will retain the Egg Bowl trophy with a 38-19 win. More news with that, but we were supposed to find out Lane Kiffin's decision. We didn't find it after the game, and we didn't find out the next day either, really. But we'll cover that. You had number 4 Georgia at number 23 Georgia Tech. I thought this game would be a little bit closer. It wasn't a blowout by any means. Georgia Tech did put up a fight, but the final was 16-9. Then it was number 3 Texas A&M at number 16 Texas. And I said that if Texas A&M was going to lose a game, it was going to be this one. And that's what happened. 17-27 was the final in favor of the Longhorns. They remained undefeated at home in Austin all year long. 2 turnovers at the end is what ultimately put the Aggies away. Marcel Reed throwing 2 interceptions kind of closed it out for the Longhorns. Kentucky at Louisville. 0-41 blowout. Cardinals will take that win for the Governor's Cup. And soon after, Kentucky actually fired their head coach, Mark Stoops. I thought it would be earlier in the season with the way that Kentucky's season has gone, but ultimately it came to that conclusion that Mark Stoops was no longer going to be at the helm of the Kentucky Wildcats football team. They've missed their second straight bowl after going 8 straight. They had 8 straight bowl game appearances, and they've missed the last 2. 20.7 points per game and 335.8 yards per game over the past 2 seasons put them last in the SEC. So it kind of makes sense once you start seeing that kind of consistency where you're not producing offensively and you can't be a contender in games, then you're pretty much going to have the end of your head coaching career at that university. They had 10-win seasons under Stoops in 2018 and 2021, but, not too many of those came after that. Well, not too many more followed. You had Clemson at South Carolina, 28-14 in favor of Clemson. 2 touchdown difference. I thought that South Carolina would put up a bit more of a fight, especially seeing how Clemson has been playing this season. They haven't been the best. I think they're at a 500, if not they're 6-5. So Shane Beamer's going to have a lot of work to put in for the 2026 season, especially with that new SEC schedule change. Also, that schedule will be announced December 11th. So keep your eye on SEC Network on all social media platforms if you're ready to see the schedule for the 2026 year with the 9 conference games. December 11th, that will be announced for all schools on who their opponents are going to be, home and away, as well as those Power 5 out-of-conference games that each team has to play. Number 14, Vandy at number 19, Tennessee. The final score was 45-24 Commodores. I thought that Vanderbilt would get the win. It was a lot closer. I think they were tied going into halftime, 21-21. If not, it was 24-24. But ultimately, Clark Lee has got everything going for Vanderbilt, and it shows. He got a 6-year extension this year. So he's going to be there for the long run. And, props to him as well. He just flipped the number one quarterback nationally from Georgia to Vanderbilt. So they're going to have a new Diego Pavia, if you will. The question kind of was, what's going to happen once Pavia is gone? This is his senior year. You don't have to worry about that anymore. He just got the number one quarterback in the nation. So it's going to be even more interesting considering how close they were into making the college football playoffs this year, and they're still trying to make a case for it. It's not going to happen, unfortunately, but they will go to a bowl game. They'll have the best regular season in Vanderbilt history for however long it's been, or early 1900s, 1960s, 1980s, something like that. But Diego Pavia was the first SEC player with 250 passing yards and 150 rushing yards in a game since Jaden Daniels, when Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. So he made a case, especially going against Tennessee. They've had a subpar year in what we're used to seeing the Volunteers. But that's not an easy win. It's the last game of the regular season. Everyone's tired. You've got injuries, and yet here's Diego Pavia doing what he does. He's still making a name for himself and being considered for the Heisman. He's wanting to go to New York for that ceremony, and we just might see it after the performance he did against Tennessee. You had Missouri at Arkansas for the Battle Line rivalry. Ultimately, it was 31-17 for Missouri to win their final game of the regular season. Arkansas continued to fail in the second half. I did some math. So throughout the entire regular season, Arkansas put up or scored a total of 395 points. That's good. That's good. In the first half alone, they put up 257. That's 65% of all of their points scored. 65% of Arkansas's points came from the first half alone. So what does that mean? Second half, they only put up 138 points. That's 35%. So almost like more than 50% Arkansas put up in the first half. But their second half offense struggled. They couldn't score. They weren't making adjustments. And their defense was tired. They couldn't sub people in. They were short-staffed. And that's what led to all of Arkansas's close losses. They couldn't put points on the board, and they couldn't stop their opponents from scoring. So all those close games, it was just, you had one shot. You had to score in the first half alone. And you had to put up more to basically outscore the entire game to end up with the win. And that's the most difficult thing you can try to do in college football, especially in the SEC. So maybe next year they'll get something figured out. They'll get some depth, especially on the defensive side. I know that they're retaining the junior Quincy Rhodes. He's going to come back for his senior year. And then KJ Jackson, he decided he's going to stay and take the helm at quarterback. We saw him go back and forth with Taylon Green subbing in and out against Missouri. Taylon Green is a senior. He's going to graduate. So now we get to see the KJ Jackson show, and he's got a full offseason to develop. So we could definitely see a different offense come the 2026 season. LSU at Oklahoma, the no bowl game or no name game, as I called it last week. It was 13-17 Sooners. That's really close, especially with Oklahoma have going and beating Alabama. And then they follow up with a close game against LSU, who was running with their assistant head coach because they didn't have a hire yet since firing Brian Kelly. I mean, that assistant coach has a lot of passion for LSU. I think they're going to keep him on the staff. If not, I'm not sure where he's going to go. He might retire just because he loves LSU that much. He loves being around those kids and coaching and the environment and culture that's in Baton Rouge. And it shows. I mean, since the win against Arkansas, that was his first when being head or interim head coach, and they've progressed each week, making games closer. So he understands what he needs to do and what he needed to do. If he had more time, it probably would have been a different outcome. But all in all, LSU put up a good fight against number 8 team in the nation right now. You had Florida State at Florida. Florida picks and choose when they want to play their games. They either have really close games like against Texas, or they get absolutely blown out and have 3 turnovers, whatever it may be. But 21-40, the Gators win for the Sunshine Showdown against Florida State, who had a very lackluster year. You could say the same with Florida. But it's good to see the SEC come out on top for that one. Lastly, we ended with number 10 Alabama at Auburn for the Iron Bowl. Like I said, Auburn had a 4-1 record when playing Alabama at night, and it almost seemed like it was going to go to 5-1. But Alabama now holds a 52-37-1 advantage in the Iron Bowl since 1892. They've won 3 straight at Jordan Hare, and a really cool fact for Kalen DeBoer, he's now 2-0 against Auburn, and he's the first Alabama head coach since Gene Stallings in 1990 to 1991 to take his first 2 Iron Bowls. So he's in rare company, it seems, to come in and be the head coach of Alabama and win your first 2 since 1990. I mean, it looks like Alabama made the right hire. And, speaking of making hires, we've got a whole lineup of new coaches in the SEC, from Auburn to Arkansas. Florida got him a new coach. Kentucky even got him a new coach that quick after firing Mark Stoops. LSU's got their coach. So we're going to jump right into it. A lot of them got a nice warm welcome this week as the SEC ACC Challenge was happening in basketball, which the SEC won for the second year in a row in 9-7. So they won 9 games, lost 7 games. I'm in my Arkansas gear. I'll come out and say it. I'm an Arkansas fan. There's a little bit of bias. I try to keep it from showing in these podcasts. I've tried to make it not be known. It's probably been known, especially those who know me know that I am an Arkansas fan. And that was a big win against Louisville. Alabama had a big win over Clemson. Kentucky fell to North Carolina in a close game. Auburn had a win over North Carolina State. So Steve Spurrier taking over for his dad, or Steve Pearl, not Spurrier. Good Lord. Stephen Pearl is doing good work after his father, Bruce, retired. So, no warning lights, no bells, dings, whistles for Auburn. Everything's still going good there. But they did make their hire at head coach with former USF head coach Alex Golesh. Before Golesh was hired at University of South Florida, they were 1-8, 2-10, and 1-11. So they didn't have a good program. Well, the years following, after Golesh was hired, 7-6, 7-6, and 9-3. So each year they've progressed and gotten better. You could make the argument, well, they're in the American Athletic Conference. That's nobody. That they got some teams there. They're group of 5. Navy's always had a good team. Tulane has a good team. So there's decent coaches within the AAC. Another hire out of the AAC, Arkansas hired Memphis head coach Ryan Silverfield. He's 50-25 overall. He's 27-21 in the AAC in his 6 seasons there. He had back-to-back double-digit wins, so 10 wins or more. 4-0 in bowl games in 2020, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So 4 consecutive bowl appearances, and he's won all of them while as the head coach at Memphis. He's gone 8-4 this year. A little fun fact, he's 3-0 against Alex Golesh. So anytime they faced each other, Memphis and USF, while they were head coaches, Silverfield came out on top. He's also 1-1 against John Sumrall, who's the head coach at Tulane. And I think it's a good hire. I think it's a decent hire. He seems ready to go. The same way with Alex Golish, who made his appearance at the Auburn game last night against NC State. Uh, you know, Arkansas fans are trying to figure it out. I think they're going more for their athletic director's head than they are for Silverfield. They're willing to give him a chance, but they want to see change. That's it. They were looking for the big hire, the John Calipari hire of James Franklin or John Gruden, and ended up with Ryan Silverfield. But I mean, he's come out. He flipped 3 commitments of 4 stars who were in-state kids. They were going to go to Miami, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Now they're going to Arkansas, and that's one thing that Arkansas recruiting is needed, is going after the in-state talent, because they never have, or they've been lackluster to. And they would go to Oklahoma and Missouri, and you're like, why did we not go after that kid? I mean, the number 1 quarterback in the state, Kane Archer, was previously committed to UCF, decommitted, and now he's at Utah, who's had a decent year. They've needed a quarterback, and now they've got the number 1 out of Arkansas. And he went from UCF to the Big Ten. So he's gone from a smaller conference to a big conference. So he's got all these eyes on him. And the one problem was that Arkansas just didn't talk to him. So it's good to see that Silverfield's doing that. But he was named the 35th head coach for Arkansas. So, I mean, quite a few changes at the helm for Arkansas. We don't really know how it's going to go, especially for all of these coaches. We're just going to have to wait and see, especially for Florida. You heard me bring up John Summerall. That was for a reason. Florida made the hire, and they took John Summerall from Tulane, and now he will be the head coach of the Florida Gators. Billy Napier, excuse me. Okay, I think I've got all the burps out. But Billy Napier, who was the former Florida head coach, I got it there. It sounds like he's going to be hired on at James Madison in the Sun Belt, which he previously coached in with the Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns. And so kind of a little swap. You get an AAC coach, and then your previous coach goes to the SBC. I think he'll do well. It kind of seems like that's his ceiling, is just the Sun Belt Conference. He does really well. He knows all the teams. He knows that conference well. It just seemed like he couldn't bring... he just couldn't bring that to the SEC and be successful. I guess that's where I'm getting. But enough about that. Focus on John Summerall. He's 42-11 in the 4 seasons as head coach between Troy and Tulane, because he was previously the head coach at Troy, which is Sun Belt Conference. So Troy, when Summerall was there, went 23-4, and they also had back-to-back Sun Belt championships in 2022 and 2023. And if you ever remember those years and be like, wow, look at Troy, they're beating SEC teams. They won their conference back to back in the Sun Belt Conference. It's not an easy conference by any means. So you know that he's a great coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to develop. He knows how to get things started and win. He has the system. He has his layout, and he follows it by the book. He dots his I's, crosses his T's, and success follows. When he was at Tulane, he was 19-6 overall. So almost to a 23-4 record, but 19-6. He went 10-2 this year, and he's 7-1 in the American Conference. So, and he's competing for the AAC championship to possibly go into the college football playoffs. So this is a great hire by Florida. They have an offensive mind coach who knows how to get things going. He knows how to set up a team, to build a culture, to make everything one. Everybody's a machine. Everyone's a clog, and they do their job, and it's oiled. It's well oiled, lubricated. Nothing's going to go wrong. And if something goes wrong, he knows how to fix it. So this is a great hire by Florida. LSU, the talks of, are they going to get Lane Kiffin? Is Florida going to get Lane Kiffin? Well, Florida opted out, said, we don't want Lane Kiffin. We've got John Summerall. Cool. LSU stuck with it. And Monday morning, Lane Kiffin hopped on a plane and right to Baton Rouge. So what about Ole Miss? Well, Ole Miss doesn't have a coach, but they have an interim head coach, and that's Pete Golding, who is their defensive coordinator. So Pete Golding is going to step in since Kiffin's departure, because Lane Kiffin is not allowed to coach Ole Miss during the college football playoffs. That was kind of the ultimatum that everyone was talking about. You know, Ole Miss was saying, look, if you leave, you're not going to coach this team. This is your most successful year here. You're going to the college football playoffs. You had a chance to compete for the SEC championship, but you're still in the college football playoffs. If you want to coach these group of guys that you've had for year after year after year, then you're going to stay and we'll match whatever contract. And he said, no, I'm good. I'm going to get so much money here at LSU that I'm just not gonna worry about it. And there's speculation saying that he didn't know that was the case until 30 minutes before their meeting. There's been tweets from players at Ole Miss saying everyone knows that that's not the case, that no one begged you to stay. No, like, you knew what you were doing. As how much truth that holds, I don't know, but it's just kind of it's sour grapes. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And interestingly, funnily enough, whatever word you want to plug in there, next year for the LSU Ole Miss game, they will be playing at Ole Miss. So that's going to be a rude homecoming for Lane Kiffin. I'm sure he'll be prepared. I'm sure it won't bother him. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'll say that much. And then we move on to Kentucky's hire. So they fired Mark Stoops soon after that Louisville loss. But then they go in a day, if that, they hire Will Stein. And if you don't know that name, that is Oregon's offensive coordinator. If you know Oregon, you know this is a good hire. So this is actually Stein's first head coaching job. He had never been a head coach before. He is a Kentucky native. He played quarterback at Louisville from 2008 to 2012, and then he spent 2 seasons on the Louisville staff. He later was hired on at Texas as a quality control coach. I don't know what that entails, but he was there from 2015 to 2017. He coached a little bit in high school at Lake Travis High School from 2018 to 2019. And then he stayed in the Texas area. He was passing coordinator and wide receiver coach at UTSA soon after that. And with his success there, he was promoted to the co-offensive coordinator and quarterback coach in 2022. Once that happened, Dan Lanning came from Oregon and said, hey, I need you in Eugene with me. And so that happened in December. He was hired as the Oregon offensive coordinator. And while there, over the past 3 seasons, they've averaged 37.7 points per game, which is just second behind North Texas, whose head coach, Eric Morris, was hired on at Oklahoma State. They also had 7.1 yards per play, which ranked number 1 nationally. So they've got a great offensive mind coach. Like I brought up the stats earlier, their offense was ranked last in the nation. So they said, okay, well, we're going to get a guy that's going to put us first in the nation. And that's exactly what they did. So don't expect the Kentucky you saw this year, next year, because they're probably going to be better. More than likely, they're going to be better. You have the freshman Cutter Boley. Sure. So he's still young in his college career, and you get a guy like this in Will Stein, who was a quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator who can make plays happen. He's going to see what Boley's capable of doing. He's going to develop him. He's going to make sure that he knows the plays, his progressions. He's going to see his talents with passing and running, and he's going to make him stronger, quicker, more agile, be aware of his pocket presence and awareness. So this is a good hire for Kentucky for football, and I'm kind of excited to see what the Wildcats do next year with under Will Stein. He's going to be Kentucky's 38th head coach for the program, so they've kind kind of similar to Arkansas. Arkansas is 35th with Ryan Silverfield. Kentucky's on their 38th. So, they've been looking for success. It's just a matter of, are these guys going to bring that success to their program? So there's all the background about these coaches. Let's talk green. What are the contracts? How are we looking? How did these athletic directors go about signing these guys for their first head coaching presence in the SEC? So going back in order, Alex Golesh at Auburn. He has a 6-year deal, so he's there for 6 years, and he's at earning $7.4 million annually. So that's his average is $7.4 million. I didn't get a big number, but do the math. Now, he does get bonuses for every win over 8 in a season. So his goal is 8. As I'm sure as every coach, their goal is to go undefeated. But if you're solely based on getting paid and having success, 8 is the line. If you can get 8 wins, you're doing good. 9 wins, Golesh will earn an additional $1.4 million. And then if he does go undefeated with 12 wins, his total compensation for that season will rise to $12.25 million. It's a lot of money, but the structure is good. You set like, hey, 8 games is good for us. We want to be over 500. We don't want a 6-6. We want to go to bowl games. 8 wins, going 8-4. That's a good season. If you can get 9, here's a little something for you. If you go undefeated, here's a lot. So I think they structured it really well. For Ryan Silverfield, he's got a 5-year deal, so not as long, but he's a total of $33.5 million for $6.7 million a year. So on the low end, Arkansas has money; they don't spend money, but I think that you're not losing a lot at $6.7 million a year and being hired on at $33.5. You're not going to lose a lot. Now they're more than likely going to hang on to Silverfield for 4 years. Depending on his success will determine that extension. It's similar to how they had Pittman structured, except for the extension of, if you stay 500, then your buyout's bigger. If you go under 500, your buyout's less. I don't know if the buyout structure stayed the same, but between the base salary and the bonuses, it seems similar between Silverfield and former head coach Sam Pittman. For John Summerall, he had a 6-year deal at $7.5 million a year. So he's a little bit more than Golesh. Florida's got money. Kind of the same structure, though, just 7.5 versus 7.4. They don't want to spend a lot of money. They're having to pay Billy Napier quite a bit. Tulane did offer Summerall to pretty much become the highest paid coach in the group of 5 in the AAC, but he ultimately opted for Florida. I think it was one of those, he's done the Sun Belt Conference. He went to the AAC. Now he wants to go and see, like, he's getting success in these smaller conferences. Now he's going to go for the big one that everyone wants to be in, that is always so successful. It just means more. So for his coaching career, it means more. He wants to be Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart. He wants to be one of those top names. He's going to, why not become the next Urban Meyer at Florida? I mean, so much success comes through Florida. It hasn't here in recent years, but there's still success. The 2024, 2025 national champions in basketball. So he's going to try and bring that winning culture back to Florida football. And you all of these guys are hired out of the AAC. So how'd they do in the AAC? John Summerall with Tulane ranked number 2, 10-2 overall, 7-1 in the conference. Great. Wonderful. You're competing in the championship for a reason. Alex Golesh at USF finished 4th in the conference, 9-3 overall, 6-2 in the conference. Great. Ryan Silverfield in Memphis finished 7th, going 8-4 overall, 4-4 in the conference. So, you go in that order, you're like, Florida, great hire. Auburn, great hire. Arkansas, are you sure? like I said, he's done well, flipping recruits, getting recruits. Um, he's retained a lot of the guys on the roster. Like I said, Quincy Rhodes and KJ Jackson are staying. They didn't enter the transfer portal. So it seems like he's getting everyone to go all in. It's just a matter of the result. And I think all of this is going to be, what are the results? As far as Florida and Auburn, I don't think you're going to have to worry about anything. I feel like you're going to get wins, that there's going to be change. You could find out come conference play, especially with this new schedule that's going to be released, because it's going to be hard, and it's going to be really difficult for these first year coaches to understand what it is that Greg Sankey has done in the SEC to make these games mean more, to make them harder, to have a stronger strength of schedule, to make a college football playoff run, and to be ranked for the college football playoffs. He wants if he could have a 12-team SEC college football playoff, he would. It won't happen. I think they've got 5 teams in right now. He wants 6, maybe 7, So that's the whole point of the schedule change. But we're going to get into the nitty gritty. The one that has had everyone on edge, LSU, Ole Miss. We're going to talk Lane Kiffin, and it's a lot. But we're going to start first and foremost with Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, because he criticized former athletic director Scott Woodward for Brian Kelly's contract and how it was structured. And, he's quoted, "Right now we have a $53 million liability, and we are not doing that again. We're going to make sure the next contract makes sense." So what's the next contract for Lane Kiffin? A 7-year deal at $91 million total, averaging $13 million a year. You just had to pay Brian Kelly $54 million, and then you're just here's $91 million. You better hope for success. They should get success. They took a lot. They took their offensive coordinator, their co-offensive coordinator, and their wide receiver coach from Ole Miss to LSU, which, Kiffin's not allowed to coach, but the offensive coordinator was allowed to go and coach for the remainder of the college football playoffs with Pete Golding, who's staying. And I'll get more into that in a little bit, but we're going to finish up all the Lane Kiffin conundrum. So not only does that happen, but Kiffin will also receive the same college football playoff bonuses from LSU that he would from Ole Miss throughout the postseason. So Ole Miss is playing in the postseason. LSU's not. But depending on Ole Miss's success, LSU is going to pay Lane Kiffin. Make it make sense. Why? You've already poached the coach. So why are you're paying him $91 million. Why are you going to pay him more? $150,000 if they survive the first round, or just for being in the first round, I believe. So there's $150,000 already. If Ole Miss wins and goes to the quarterfinals, he gets $250,000. And then if they win the entire national championship, he gets $1 million. And all of that will have to be paid within 30 days of the end of Ole Miss's season. So if they just make it through to the first round, whether they win or lose, $150,000. If they win and go to the second round, $250,000. I don't know. Just make it. None of it's making sense. If Kiffin's fired without cause, the way that they did Brian Kelly, he'd be owed 80% of his remaining salary. It's a lot of money for $91 million. If you just, hey, this didn't work out, see you later, bye. You're paying 80% of his remaining salary. a lot of this is because of his agent, Jimmy Sexton, who I've gone through the list of coaches. I haven't even gone through the whole list of all of his coaches. I just did the SEC one. He has a monopoly, and he has a way of getting coaches or his agents ridiculous deals, ridiculous amount of money, so that he can pocket it, and it never works out. Something always happens. And you saw it with Ole Miss. You know, they were willing to make it, and I'm sure Sexton was in Kiffin's ear saying, hey, but look at LSU. Look at LSU. 91 million? And I mean, moving on. By the way, that's not subject for to be offset or for mitigation. That's gonna happen. If Kiffin leaves, so if he decides, hey, I don't want to be at LSU anymore, I'm going to go to Mississippi State. I don't know. I'm just throwing a school out there. Then his buyout drops to $7 million and then down to $6 million in 2027. So let's get into the full contract of the $91 million for LSU to Lane Kiffin. So if LSU goes and wins the SEC championship, they will pay Lane Kiffin $1 million. Right there. You win the SEC, $1 million. I mean, they're literally putting all their chips in. That's what's happening. College football playoff structure that starts at $750,000 for the first round. So if they just appear in the first round, $750. Second round, don't know. If they win the whole thing, $3 million. It's a lot of money. I understand why they want to win. But, I mean, they're putting all of their... You'd think the entire state of Louisiana put their money in a pool and said, give it all to Kiffin. There haven't been any comments from the governor. No clue how he feels about this. He's probably like, yeah, we got Lane Kiffin. Let's go win ball games. But you're paying $91 million. Also, because it's more money, the school will also cover the difference up to $500,000 between the purchase price of his new home in Mississippi, which was priced at $2.89 million, as well as a new primary home in the Baton Rouge area. So they're putting all of this money into Lane Kiffin. Yet, they're still having to pay Brian Kelly $54 million. They're also making their last pay of $17 million to Ed Ogeron from 2021 when he got fired. So 4 years of payments is just about to get paid off. You've got another 4 or 5 years of $54 million that you have to pay off. And then you're also having to pay the salary of $13 million per year to your new head coach. All of that in total, so $91 million contracted for Lane Kiffin, $54 million for Brian Kelly for his buyout, and then your last payment of $17 million to Ed Ogeron, totaled up is $162 million that Lane State University is going to have to be paying up. As far as this contract structure, it's, to me, stupid. I understand wanting to get a coach, needing to get a coach that, you know, because you fired Brian Kelly without cause. You were just tired of him, so to speak. You poach a coach from Ole Miss. None of it makes sense. I just, it ultimately baffles me why you would make a contract structure like this, other than you threw every penny at Lane Kiffin just to get him. And $91 million was the number. I mean, for what, 7 years? Is that what I said? 7 years? Yeah, 7 years, $91 million. I hope it works out. It should. He brought the whole Ole Miss staff. He's also got transfers from Ole Miss. He's got his recruits who were previously committed to Ole Miss, now to LSU. So it seems like he picked up right where he left off. Just everyone's going to be wearing purple and yellow instead of blue and red. Expect LSU to go 11-1 next year. I mean, I'll say that much. If it's anything less, then sorry, LSU, you made a fool of yourself. If he's bringing his whole offensive staff and some players, and you still have players on the LSU roster that haven't transferred under the recruiting class of Brian Kelly, you could probably blame Brian Kelly for the recruits that he brought in, but all in all, it seems like Lane Kiffin's holding pocket aces. And if he folds, then cue Willie Nelson. So enough of that. Ole Miss sticking with Pete Golding. 3-year contract extension. He didn't get promoted to head coach. He's just interim head coach, but he did get a 3-year contract extension because he said, I'm not leaving. I'm staying at Ole Miss. That extension is for $2.61 million a year. He becomes the second highest paid among the SEC defensive coordinators. His 2025 salary, so this year, $2.55 million, and that becomes the second highest among all college football assistants for this season. His salary will increase next year to $2.6 million and then $2.7 million in 2027. So he gets a bump of about $0.1 million, 100,000. Is my math right? 100,000 each year. The only defensive coordinators with a higher average salary is Penn State's Jimmy Knowles, who earns $3.1 million, Auburn, DJ Durkin, $2.7 million, and then USC, D'Anton Lynn at $2.65 million. So Pete Golding has some shoes to fill. It's a hard spot for him to be in with Ole Miss being in the college football playoffs. They just lost Lane Kiffin, who's not going to be coaching. He's stepping in at the role in the role to do the best he can ultimately to try to keep Ole Miss's season alive, because they've worked so hard. They went 11-1, 7-1 in conference, had a chance to go to the SEC championship, but the way that the games of last week played out, they didn't make it, but they're still in the college football playoffs. I think they're ranked number 8. Let's see. No, Oklahoma's number 8. Ole Miss is number 6. So even better, It's going to be hard. It sucks. That's going to be a rough game to watch, knowing what could have been for all Ole Miss fans in the state of Mississippi and located in Oxford, because they're number 6 and it's the first round. You have home game. You have home field advantage. It'll be interesting, but depending on the outcome, it's going to suck. And what's even worse is you're like, we can do this, shove it, Lane. You're not going to be a part of this. LSU's still going to pay him the same amount of money that he would have if he stayed. Because why not? All in all, Lane Kiffin won between LSU and Ole Miss. He won. And the only way to get your revenge is to win next year and the year after that, and just have Ole Miss always beat LSU. It's the only way you're going to get your revenge on Lane Kiffin. What they'll call that rivalry, I have no idea. No idea. Oh. So we're finished with all the contracts. Too much money. It's making my brain hurt, especially the contract that LSU made with Lane Kiffin. But I'm not the one who's forking out the money. So SEC championship weekend is this weekend. Like I said, end of regular season, and until bowl games are announced, this is the last SEC game. So who's our opponents? Well, you got number 4 Georgia and number 10 Alabama. Who saw that coming? This is the third time in the last 5 years that these two teams have met in the SEC championship. record the game, watch a rerun. I don't know. I mean, how many times are we going to continue to get Georgia and Alabama? All season, you're thinking it's Texas A&M. Nope. End of the season, they always fall flat. What happened? They lost to Texas. And because of that, they're out. Why? Here's why. So Georgia's 7-1 with a win over Texas and Ole Miss, but a loss to Alabama. So they've won over Texas, and they beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 7-1 with a win over Oklahoma, but the loss to Georgia. Texas A&M just lost to Texas. I'm looking at common opponents here because you have to figure out the tiebreaker. Because Alabama's 7-1 with a win over Georgia, but a loss to Oklahoma. So you're probably thinking, well, Ole Miss beat Oklahoma. Why don't they get to be in there if Oklahoma beat Alabama? Well, it's because Bama beat Georgia and Georgia lost to Alabama. So Alabama gets the tiebreaker over Ole Miss because they beat Georgia in the regular season. That's why Alabama's in. Georgia gets the tiebreaker because they beat Texas in the regular season, which Texas A&M lost to. All four teams 7-1, but because of those wins, that's why they get the tiebreaker. Would it be nice to see Texas A&M and Ole Miss? Yeah, it's probably what it should have been, but because of that loss, Georgia got in. I mean, that's ultimately what it came down to, was the common opponents, who won, who lost between those common opponents. Unfortunately for Texas A&M, they didn't have any common opponents. They didn't face Alabama, Georgia, or Ole Miss. So it just came down to, can they beat Texas? They didn't. So Georgia got that tiebreaker. Again, third time in the last 5 years that these two teams have met, and in the previous two meetings between these two teams. So anytime that Georgia and Alabama have faced each other in the SEC championship, Alabama has won, and those were in the years 2021 and 2023. Bama has to do it again if they want to continue their race in the college football playoffs, because they're on the inside looking out. You know, they have a 10-2 record. Georgia's at 11-1. They could take a loss. They'd lose their first round bye, but they could take a loss. Alabama, one more loss, they're out. They're sitting at the 9th seed. They have to win this game to make a run in the college football playoffs. Well, what does the first round look like? Starting off, you have the number 12 seed, which will be the conference champion number 5, because you take the 5th and 4th highest rank. So conference champion number 5 right now is Tulane. They will face North Texas in the AAC championship. In the CFP, Tulane is ranked 20th. North Texas is ranked number 24. So if North Texas wins, they possibly get the jump, and it'll be North Texas. But right now it's Tulane, and they will face number 5 Oregon. The winner of that game will face number 4 Texas Tech. So that's first game. Then you have the rematch, number 9 Alabama versus number 8 Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 2-0 against Alabama over the past 2 years. So if Alabama wins against Georgia, they then have to turn around and face Oklahoma in the first round of the college football playoffs in Oklahoma. So a road game as well. Not an easy road, because if they do beat Oklahoma, if they beat Georgia for one, and then if they beat Oklahoma in the first round of the college football playoffs, they then have to play number 1 Ohio State. The most difficult road to getting a national championship belongs to the Alabama Crimson Tide. And if they make it, then this is a battle-tested team, and you know they were for real. If they go through Oklahoma after being 2-0 against them on the road and beating Ohio State in the quarterfinals to go to the semis, Kalen DeBoer's got his work cut out for him, and hopefully he's already prepped and ready for that. Then you have conference champion number 4, which is currently Virginia in the ACC. They'll be playing Duke in the ACC championship. So unless they lose, it's going to be Virginia. And Virginia will face number 6 Ole Miss. I'd say Ole Miss, but because of everything that happened, it's going to be a lot closer than I think. I can't be for certain. I think it's going to be a lot closer than it would have been. The winner of that game will face number 3 Georgia, who Ole Miss already lost to in the regular season. So it seems like Georgia's going to get its, unless they lose in the SEC championship, they're going to have a pretty easy coast to the semifinals and possibly the national championship game. So Georgia fans, breathe a little bit and depending on results of this weekend, but you can breathe a little bit. Another rematch, you have number 10 Notre Dame going against number 7 Texas A&M, which happened first game of the year, and maybe second game of the year. I don't remember. But Texas A&M won that game on a comeback late last second touchdown that was considered controversial, but they won that game by 1 point. Do I think it would be different? Yes. Do I think it would still be close? Also, yes. So what I'm saying is I think Notre Dame would win this time around. There's a lot going on of why is Notre Dame in and not Miami? They played each other and Miami won. It's Notre Dame. This is why they need to be in a conference. This is why I hate having an independent school, because they're always going to be, their highest rank they can be is number 5, but they were 0-2 and still ranked number 24 going into week 3. They buy the ticket to get in. Now, if they joined a conference, it'd be different because they'd have to go through that whole conference, figure out their standings. They might not even make the college football playoffs, but that's why they stay independent, because then they don't have to worry about going through a conference and winning a conference championship. They're just in. Anyways, the final bracket will be released next Tuesday on December 7th, or Sunday. Not even Tuesday, Sunday is when it's supposed to be released. So we'll find out, especially after this weekend, which that's a quick turnaround to go from, I guess, because they already know with the results, everyone who's already in it is pretty much in it. They're just looking to see if Tulane wins, if Virginia wins, and pretty much what happens between Alabama and Georgia. Other than that, everything seems set. It'll be Notre Dame versus Texas A&M, Tulane versus Oregon, Virginia and Ole Miss. The only thing that might change is if Georgia falls out. And if that's the case, if Georgia if Georgia loses to Alabama, then it looks like Oregon will get that first round bye. And then Georgia will have to go to the first rounds of playoffs. And I'm assuming would play Tulane. I don't know. But that's pretty much it for all the news. But since we're, talking about the SEC championship coming up this weekend, it is the quote unquote final SEC game of the season. It's postseason, but it's still football season. I wanted to look at a player from one of those two teams. I covered Alabama, so we're going to cover Georgia. My transitions are terrible. We're going to cover Georgia in the Scripture Spotlight. So we're covering a player from Georgia, and you could probably guess who it's going to be. It's going to be Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback who ultimately was in the SEC championship in 2024, replacing Carson Beck. Made his, debut. I'm not really sure what it was, but fended off the Texas Longhorns in overtime to win the SEC championship and go on competing in the college football playoffs. One thing that I found with Gunnar Stockton is he's quoted saying that he lives life by the golden rule. sure we've all heard our own variations of the golden rule: treat others like you would want to be treated. So let's look at the actual scripture. Matthew 7:12 is where you can find this. And it says, "Do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets." So that's the full verse. In a sense, it's do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So let's go a little bit more into it. So commonly known as the golden rule, in many religions it is stated negatively, meaning don't do to others what you don't want done to you. By stating it positively, Jesus made it more significant. It is not very hard to refrain from harming others. It is much more difficult to take the initiative in doing something good for them. It's easier to hurt people, to say harmful words, than it is to say something nice. The golden rule, as Jesus formulated it, is the foundation of active goodness and mercy, the kind of love God shows to us every day. Think of a good and merciful action you can do today. And that's it. I mean, that's what he lives by. I want to be treated nicely. I want to be treated well. I'm going to do that to everyone I encounter. If there is something good I can do today, I'm going to do it. And if someone's mean to me, I'll meet them with kindness, the same way that God does with us. He treats us with mercy. It's so simple. I mean, it's just this little sentence, but it goes so much deeper than just the surface level. I mean, like the last thing I read, I got to read it again because my memory is terrible. Yeah. Think of a good and merciful action you can do today. And I'll leave it right there. That'll be it. Just think of something that you can do today. And remember that, each morning you wake up, what can I do today? What can I do today? That should be the question you ask each morning you wake up. What can I do today, Lord? Let me serve you. What can I do today? Plain and simple. I mean, it's a good cup of coffee right there. But that'll be it for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, wherever you can. We got it. We're trying to get the name out. I do this for fun. It's always so much fun. If the audience grows, it's because of you for sharing, a little bit because of me for just holding a microphone and talking about sports and trying to be entertaining while doing it. But it's ultimately because of you, because you've shared it. You've asked someone to listen. You've put it on social media. You will be the reason why this podcast grows. And I can't thank you all enough for sharing. I went through my Spotify Wrapped for Spotify creators, and I was one of the top most shared shows of 2025. And I started this 11 weeks ago. So that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for putting it out there, for spreading the word. And I'm hoping that's not doing it, but I hope I'm doing justice. So no one comes back to you and be like, dude, what did you make me listen to? Like, who is this guy? I'm just a guy in a room that talks to a camera. That's ultimately it. But hopefully it's entertaining for you guys. I'll see you all next week. Here as always. I'm just going to name it As Always with Aubrey Kelly. But I'll see you all next week here on Across the South.